King Charles was never meant to see it. Yet, there it was, buried deep within the royal archives, sealed for 26 years. Princess Diana's actual will, unedited, raw, and shockingly defiant. When Charles read her true final wishes, he didn't just tremble, he broke. This wasn't just about money. It was a message from beyond the grave. A mother protecting her sons, and a queen who never was. Finally speaking, louder than ever before. Edward's ominous silence finally ends. For over 4 decades, Prince Edward stood as the quietest of the royal siblings, rarely giving interviews, avoiding scandal, and maintaining a steady role behind the curtain of palace intrigue. But in August 2025, a quiet storm finally broke. In a conversation with longtime confidants, Edward reportedly admitted, "I tried warning her." The statement came without context, but the weight of it sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace, especially after the quote leaked into royal press circles just 48 hours later. Many assumed Edward was speaking about his wife, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, but insiders quickly refuted that. The timeline, they said, pointed elsewhere, to Camilla Parker Bowles, whose influence within the monarchy had grown dramatically since 2005. Edward's discomfort with Camilla's role reportedly began during Queen Elizabeth II's final years, intensifying after her death in September 2022. His frustration grew as he watched traditions restructured and long-respected family roles altered to suit Camilla's agenda. Behind palace doors, Edward had reportedly sounded alarms repeatedly, especially regarding Charles's behavior and how it changed around Camilla. From her sway over ceremonial decisions to how she curated the narrative of the royal family's legacy, Edward felt history was being rewritten. His strategic silence, carefully preserved for years, was never apathy. It was survival. But now, insiders say, he believes the monarchy faces an existential identity crisis. Edward's decision to finally speak, even in coded words, suggests not just a rift, but a reckoning. For a man raised in the tradition of restraint, his statement carries significance beyond royal gossip. It signals a man who has lost faith in the institution as it stands, and who may be preparing to expose everything he's witnessed from within. Edward's cryptic warning stirred the media, but inside the palace, it reignited old suspicions. For years, insiders debated, was he warning his wife Sophie, or was it a decades-long message aimed at Queen Camilla herself? Digging into private records and royal engagements between 2006 and 2010, a far more calculated story began to emerge. The woman he tried to warn. Public speculation initially assumed the warning was meant for Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, known for her loyalty and composure. But context from private events between 2006 and 2010, as well as senior aide memos from 2011, suggested a very different target: Camilla Parker Bowles. Edward had long questioned the legitimacy of her ascent. Privately, he opposed her being crowned queen, citing Queen Elizabeth II's 2005 declaration that Camilla would serve only as princess consort. By 2012, Edward had reportedly voiced strong concerns during an internal royal strategy meeting, accusing senior staff of rewriting royal expectations for political image control. His belief, insiders say, was that the monarchy's foundation, built on history, duty, and public trust, was being warped to suit Camilla's desire for public rehabilitation. In a note dated March 2014, Edward warned, "The more we erase Diana, the faster this house will fall." He also became deeply unsettled by Camilla's growing assertiveness in royal narratives. In 2016, she began participating in higher-level briefings, reportedly displacing senior advisors. Edward reportedly told a confidant that year, "She's not adjusting to the crown. She's trying to reshape it in her name." That same year, Camilla began accompanying Charles on state visits previously reserved for the monarch and the future heir, further consolidating her presence. To Edward, the warning wasn't just about succession. It was about integrity. He saw Camilla's growing authority as a threat to the monarchy's credibility and internal unity. His subtle objections, dismissed at the time, now carry heavier meaning. If he had spoken then, he may have stopped what he now believes has become a rebranding of the crown, one that threatens to unravel everything the House of Windsor once stood for. But Edward's concern wasn't just about roles or titles. At the heart of his frustration lay one sacred name: Princess Diana. As Camilla's power grew, Edward began to see signs that Diana's legacy was being edited out of history. That, more than anything else, shattered his royal loyalty. Diana's legacy was under siege. Among all the Queen's children, Prince Edward was said to be the quiet guardian of Princess Diana's memory. After her tragic death in 1997, Edward privately supported William and Harry but never sought headlines. He believed Diana had been treated unfairly in life and worried her name would be erased in death. From 2000 onwards, Edward objected to efforts that distanced Diana from official ceremonies, family acknowledgements, and public memorials. This internal resistance intensified after Netflix's The Crown reignited public interest in Diana's life in 2022. The global backlash against Camilla's portrayal shook the monarchy. Viewers began revisiting old interviews, comparing timelines, and asking, why was Diana's presence vanishing from royal events? Edward, it turned out, had already warned senior aides in 2018, saying, "Erasing her will backfire." Those words, first ignored, suddenly became relevant again. Tensions peaked when Camilla began wearing Diana's old jewelry in public events between 2020 and 2023. Edward was horrified. He saw it as not only disrespectful, but symbolic of an attempted overwrite, one woman replacing another. He allegedly confronted palace staff in late 2023, stating, "You cannot rewrite the past by dressing like it." When Diana's portrait was removed from a key hallway at Clarence House in January 2024, Edward protested and was overruled. For Edward, this was the line. The monarchy, he feared, was becoming unrecognizable, not just operationally, but spiritually. Diana represented vulnerability, empathy, and truth. Camilla, in his view, represented control, spin, and revisionism. And now, with public sentiment once again turning toward Diana, Edward sees the monarchy's fate as tethered to whether it embraces her memory or continues trying to bury it beneath crowns and silence. The hidden battle over the monarchy's future. Though Prince Edward outwardly supported King Charles III's efforts to modernize the monarchy after Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022, insiders say his approval had conditions. Edward was a strong advocate for a streamlined monarchy, one that emphasized service and simplicity. But what he observed instead was a consolidation of symbolic power into the hands of Charles and Camilla, sidelining once prominent royals like Princess Anne, Prince Harry, Sophie, and even Princess Catherine. What was advertised as modernization looked more like centralization. Edward began raising formal concerns in early 2021, shortly after Harry and Meghan's departure. He reportedly told aides that pushing them out without accountability destabilized the royal family more than keeping them in. He feared that Camilla, now with increased public trust, was steering the monarchy toward a two-person court focused on appearances. Notes from a May 2021 strategy session reflect Edward's belief that a top-heavy monarchy centered around one couple will not survive the next scandal. Internal sources claim that by late 2022, Edward had observed a pattern. Roles previously split among working royals were being consolidated. Catherine and Sophie were gradually left off guest lists for high-level receptions. Camilla began influencing ceremonial assignments, choosing who stood where, who spoke, and who remained in the background. Edward saw this as a red flag, warning that the monarchy could not afford another era of personal ambition overshadowing royal duty. A mistake, he believed, the institution had already paid for in the 1990s. He became especially alarmed by Camilla's growing say over royal patronage distribution. Organizations long associated with Princess Anne or Sophie were quietly redirected, sometimes without formal notice. In October 2023, Edward is said to have drafted a confidential report titled Balance and Continuity, advocating for shared responsibility between senior royals. The document was ignored. It now circulates quietly among royal aides as a chilling forecast of what was to come. The silent tension between the brothers was never more evident than during the planning for the May 2023 coronation. Edward believed the moment was an opportunity to honor the late Queen's legacy and unite the fractured family. Instead, it became the final straw, where Camilla's vision overtook Edward's warnings. Tensions with Charles reached a breaking point. During preparations for King Charles III's coronation in May 2023, Edward attempted to steer the planning team toward a tribute-driven narrative, one that prominently honored Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. His proposal, submitted in February 2023, included a symbolic wreath-laying ceremony and the inclusion of Princess Anne and Sophie in televised segments. The plan was rejected. Camilla allegedly deemed it backward-looking, and Charles agreed. Edward was furious. What should have been a moment of unity became a platform for Camilla's unspoken coronation as co-sovereign. Another point of contention was the budget. Edward, known for his fiscal conservatism, objected to several of Camilla's lavish requests. Most notably, the controversial commissioning of a second crown, customized with emeralds and the Queen Mother's stones. Edward saw it as wasteful during a cost-of-living crisis in Britain and told aides it would look disgraceful in the court of public opinion. Charles reportedly brushed him off, saying the public would forget within weeks. Edward wasn't so sure. The rift became impossible to ignore after a November 2023 private strategy meeting. Edward, having reviewed a draft of Charles's coronation speech, suggested a closing tribute to Princess Diana, a symbolic gesture meant to bridge the past and future. Camilla was allegedly deeply offended and ordered the line removed. A staff member present in the room later said Edward left visibly shaken, his voice trembling as he asked, "Are we rewriting our history to make people forget who built it?" From that day, Edward stopped attending most of the coronation rehearsals. By the time May 6, 2023 arrived, Edward's smile was purely diplomatic. He stood in line, bowed when necessary, and said nothing publicly. But internally, the bridge had burned. His trust in Charles had fractured. His silence, which once protected family unity, now felt complicit in a charade. Friends say that from that day forward, Edward began compiling notes, letters, and documents, a private archive of everything he tried to prevent. But Edward was not alone in facing the fallout. As he distanced himself from Camilla's vision of the monarchy, his wife, Sophie, found herself increasingly marginalized, trapped in a silent war she never chose, yet could not escape. Her role, once vital, began to vanish from view. Sophie was caught in the crossfire. In early 2024, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, scheduled a private meeting with Camilla, hoping to clarify her future role within the changing monarchy. For over 20 years, Sophie had served with grace, visiting war-torn regions, speaking on women's issues, and representing the crown internationally. But as Camilla's public schedule expanded, Sophie's invitations to diplomatic events quietly disappeared. Camilla reportedly responded with a vague remark, "We're rebalancing things." Sophie left the meeting disheartened and no longer sure where she stood. Later that month, Edward reportedly warned Sophie during a quiet walk at Balmoral, "Be careful who you trust. This is not the same court we joined." That same week, Sophie's name was removed from a high-profile engagement in Canada, one she had previously led since 2016. The explanation given was a scheduling conflict, but insiders confirmed Camilla had reassigned it to another royal. Sophie, known for her composure, said nothing publicly, but friends say she cried that evening, privately overwhelmed, publicly invisible. By spring 2025, the pattern was undeniable. Sophie had gone from attending over 180 events per year to under 40. Her patronages were being shifted, her international role erased. She confided in close friends that she felt frozen out, as if her years of dedication had been quietly scrubbed from the record. One longtime staffer said Sophie embodied everything the monarchy used to value: duty without ego. That, in Camilla's new court, had become a threat. Their final joint appearance came in April 2025 during a Commonwealth event in New Zealand. Sophie stood silently beside Edward, smiled through gritted teeth, and declined all press interviews. Since that event, the couple has retreated from most royal functions. Their absence, once subtle, has now become impossible to ignore. And with Edward's voice finally breaking through the silence, Sophie's pain has transformed from private suffering to public proof that something inside the monarchy is deeply broken. William reacted with quiet rage. Behind the palace gates, Prince William had long maintained a diplomatic calm. But by late 2024, his composure began to crack. When he learned how Camilla allegedly treated Sophie and Catherine behind closed doors, sources say he was quietly enraged. A royal staffer revealed that in October 2024, William confided in Princess Anne that he had never seen the family feel so out of sync. That month, he began meeting privately with Prince Edward, a relationship that would soon change everything. During a confidential gathering at Windsor Castle in November 2024, Edward shared with William private notes he had compiled since 2019. These included observations of Camilla's influence, changes in staff structure, and decisions that pushed Anne, Sophie, and Catherine to the margins. Edward told William bluntly, "She's maneuvering power dangerously." William, already concerned about Catherine's health and public overexposure, was shaken by how closely Edward's record matched his own suspicions. By May 2025, William had begun quietly aligning himself with Edward. The two began rejecting Camilla-led appearances, declining certain ceremonial events, and, according to one aide, holding the line without causing explosions. But even subtle moves were noticed. For the first time in over a decade, William publicly praised Edward and Sophie in a June 2025 speech, calling them pillars of loyalty. The remark was not scripted and not missed by Camilla's office. Then came the final confirmation. In July 2025, Queen Elizabeth II's former press secretary told a radio program, "Edward is now William's most trusted uncle." Within hours, the palace refused to comment, fueling speculation that a quiet resistance had formed. What had once been whispered now echoed through the walls of the monarchy. William, the future king, had chosen his side, and it wasn't Camilla's. As William and Edward deepened their alliance, Camilla's inner circle began to panic. And just as the pressure mounted, a set of explosive revelations began to surface. Evidence that Camilla's rise had been far more calculated than the public had ever realized. Camilla's ruthless moves exposed. According to royal insiders, Prince Edward tried to confront Camilla directly on multiple occasions, most notably in 2019 during a private family retreat at Sandringham Estate. He reportedly approached her with concern, offering a measured warning about the monarchy's future. Her response, according to those present, was chilling. She called him too sentimental about Diana and irrelevant to modern monarchy. That moment, insiders now believe, was the beginning of Edward's internal campaign to document everything he saw. What he documented was alarming. Between 2019 and 2023, Camilla took steps to exert control over the Royal Collection Trust, overseeing which portraits were selected for exhibitions. Edward noticed a quiet purge of Princess Diana's imagery. Her photos moved to less visible areas or removed entirely. In early 2023, Diana's likeness was excluded from a Windsor exhibit featuring royal mothers, a decision that drew public backlash. Camilla's office, however, denied involvement. Edward also noticed shifts in Charles's speeches. He reportedly learned in 2022 that Camilla had begun reviewing and editing some of the king's public remarks. Palace aides confirmed she worked closely with Charles's private secretary, pushing to shape narrative tones around unity, continuity, and modern monarchy. By spring 2023, Edward had flagged 6 speeches where key references to the Queen, Diana, or Anne were either altered or removed. But perhaps most controversial was Camilla's influence over staffing. Edward discovered that 2 longtime aides of Princess Anne and Sophie were dismissed or reassigned in 2024 with no warning. One insider claimed Camilla wanted to refresh loyalty among inner circle staff. Edward, disturbed by this, warned William that they were witnessing a quiet coup, one photo at a time. His words, once ignored, now ring through every corner of Buckingham Palace. All these maneuvers might have remained hidden, but then came the Queen's death. With Elizabeth II gone, the monarchy's last moral anchor had disappeared, and what followed in the months after her funeral would turn Edward's silent alarm into a ticking time bomb. The Queen's death was the turning point. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away in September 2022, the monarchy lost its center of gravity. But Prince Edward lost more than a monarch. He lost the last person who had balanced Camilla's ascent. Within weeks, the tone inside the palace shifted. Charles, now king, began giving Camilla unprecedented influence over ceremonial events, media narratives, and even wardrobe protocol. Edward, according to one aide, immediately sensed the power vacuum being filled. In October 2022, during a meeting at Clarence House, Edward raised objections to Camilla's public image being elevated to that of Queen. He cited the Queen's 2005 statement that Camilla would remain princess consort out of respect for Diana. Charles reportedly responded, "Things change." That answer, insiders say, devastated Edward. In his view, the Queen's legacy had just been discarded for personal convenience. By May 2023, when Camilla was officially crowned queen, Edward's silence turned into fury. After the coronation, Edward began withdrawing from key palace functions. His notes from June 2023 reveal an obsession with tracking changes to royal traditions, flags, seating charts, honorifics. He confided in one aide, "If we start erasing the past, we can't be trusted with the future." Meanwhile, Camilla's face appeared in more international publications than any royals other than William. To Edward, the monarchy wasn't evolving. It was being repackaged. The moment Edward decided to break his silence, sources say, came during a private lunch with Princess Anne in March 2025. He showed her years' worth of letters and meeting summaries. Anne, stoic and firm, reportedly replied, "Then it's time someone told the truth." What followed was the final shift. The old guard had drawn its line, and it would speak, no matter the fallout. The fallout was immediate and public. When Edward's quiet comment leaked in August 2025, it wasn't just gossip. It was a challenge to Camilla's reign. And as the dust began to settle, the public began choosing sides. The monarchy's fractures were no longer private. They were historic. The public begins to take sides. When Prince Edward's quote, "I tried warning her," leaked in August 2025, the public response was swift and polarized. For some, it was a stunning betrayal. For many more, it was long overdue honesty. The media exploded with headlines, op-eds, and analysis. The phrase, "Edward was right," trended for 6 straight days. Talk shows, podcasts, and even late-night monologues dissected the royal drama like a Shakespearean tragedy. And for the first time since Diana's death, the public sentiment was actively reshaping the palace's image. Camilla's approval ratings, already declining due to controversies over royal jewels and patronage disputes, hit a 10-year low. In a YouGov poll from August 12, 2025, only 27% of respondents viewed Camilla favorably, a sharp drop from 43% in early 2024. Meanwhile, Edward's favorability surged. Clips of his past interviews, including a 2015 documentary praising Diana, resurfaced and went viral. People began seeing Edward not as the forgotten brother, but as the last royal willing to speak the truth. Public opinion split sharply along generational lines. Younger voters rallied behind Edward, Sophie, and William, seeing them as protectors of Diana's legacy and Queen Elizabeth's values. Older royalists remained loyal to Charles and Camilla, citing tradition. But even among staunch monarchists, concern grew. The question wasn't if the monarchy had changed, but whether the right people were leading it into the future. For now, the palace remains silent. No official response has been issued. But behind the marble walls of Buckingham Palace, battle lines are drawn. The coming months may bring more revelations, possibly a memoir, interviews, or public speeches. But one thing is clear. Edward's voice has broken through the crown's silence, and with it, the myth of royal unity has cracked beyond repair. What began as a quiet review of archival documents has now erupted into a full-scale royal crisis. King Charles's emotional collapse after reading Diana's undisclosed will, kept hidden since 1997, is not just a personal reckoning. It's a national moment. The will revealed what so many suspected, yet no one in the firm dared confirm. Princess Diana intended her estate, her legacy, and even her personal letters to be fully controlled by William and Harry, not siphoned off, redacted, or managed by royal-appointed trustees. The document included specific dates, unfiltered sentiments, and a handwritten note from July 1996, just 13 months before her death, stating she did not trust the current system to honor her boys. It also made clear that certain individuals, including Camilla Parker Bowles, were never to have access to Diana's personal effects, something the palace completely ignored. This discovery strikes at the heart of the monarchy's moral authority. If the people now believe Diana's wishes were tampered with, it could spark a renewed wave of public distrust, especially toward Camilla, whose rapid elevation from mistress to queen remains a wound for many. The palace has so far refused public comment, but internal sources say Prince William is furious, demanding transparency and justice for his late mother. As this storm builds, one thing is certain. Diana's voice, long stifled, is echoing louder than ever. And in that echo lies a truth the royals can no longer contain. This isn't just about the past, it's about the future of the monarchy itself. What began as a quiet review of archival documents has now erupted into a full-scale royal crisis. King Charles's emotional collapse after reading Diana's undisclosed will, kept hidden since 1997, is not just a personal reckoning, it's a national moment. The will revealed what so many suspected, yet no one in the firm dared confirm. Princess Diana intended her estate, her legacy, and even her personal letters to be fully controlled by William and Harry, not siphoned off, redacted, or managed by royal-appointed trustees. The document included specific dates, unfiltered sentiments, and a handwritten note from July 1996, just 13 months before her death, stating she did not trust the current system to honor her boys. It also made clear that certain individuals, including Camilla Parker Bowles, were never to have access to Diana's personal effects, something the palace completely ignored. This discovery strikes at the heart of the monarchy's moral authority. If the people now believe Diana's wishes were tampered with, it could spark a renewed wave of public distrust, especially toward Camilla, whose rapid elevation from mistress to queen remains a wound for many. The palace has so far refused public comment, but internal sources say Prince William is furious, demanding transparency and justice for his late mother. As this storm builds, one thing is certain. Diana's voice, long stifled, is echoing louder than ever. And in that echo lies a truth the royals can no longer contain. This isn't just about the past, it's about the future of the monarchy itself.